So now we'll take a look at the classes in the loadout and give it a bit of a breakdown and what are good things to choose, what's a good setup before a mission. We'll try and keep it as brief as we possibly can. So at the end of a mission you'll get your cases that you've unlocked, and you can claim these depending on the ability. You'll get depending on the level you get different contents in them. We can open up these cases and see what we got inside. Now these can be assigned to your teammates, and they can also be changed between your teammates depending on when you start a mission, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Okay, so the other thing you can do is recruit your troops, and they tend to come in at a level that's appropriate for like your overall squad really, and depending on where you are in the game. So they'll come in with skill points that you can then assign, and we'll look at that in a moment. You recruit those to your mission, to your squad, sorry, and if we have a look at our actual barracks, you can see that we've got a nice little squad built up here, and we've got my main characters that I've kind of been working with, and I do use these more than perhaps I should. I tend not to use a lot of the support ones unless I have to, but we've got these up to like level 6, level 7, so we tend to get new characters that come in at that. And then it's up to you if you want to remove your remove ones from the bottom of your roster list. Your roster does increase as you go through the game, just to replace them with ones that come in kind of pre-baked with more abilities, and depending on the point in the game you are, they come in with more skill points at certain levels, and you can rank those up to your liking. So we'll take a look at how we can rank up different characters and how it works in terms of the classes. So we have a range of classes, and they all have subclasses that you can develop them into. If we take a look at Gabe first, Gabe is a support, and as you can see through here, you will unlock additional ones within these classes. Now the unit class for the support is designed to heal and to boost the abilities and capabilities of the other members, and you'll have seen things in the other videos like the ability to give them another action point, or to heal them up, or to heal the whole squad. So it's essential really, if you can, to make sure that you've got a support class with your teammates, because they're really useful in keeping the rest of your squad alive, especially later in the game. You can see here that it says the combat medic subclass focuses on squad based healing. What that actually means is I've kind of put a lot into this healing part. So you end up with 4 sectors in your character classes. For the support you have surgeon, paragon, strategist and combat medic. Now it really depends on your style of play. Some of them I do personally find a lot better than others. But it really depends on the route you want to go. Now what I'm not going to do is tell you like you should just totally go for Paragon. Paragon's the best one. You can start to get a feel around this point when you've unlocked to about here where you think you want to push your characters the most. I found that healing was really useful. I'm not totally convinced about the chainsaw attacks here, but certainly being able to have the therapy, the ability to like almost to have a chance of increasing to 100 health, and the group therapy has been really useful, especially in the late game, so that's why I pushed for that one. What you can do though when you're trying to decide on these routes is just hover it over, and it will tell you what that ability will unlock. So it's worth having to think about what you think will be the most useful for the way that you play. I tend to end up with a lot of squad members injured. It could just be my play style, it could mean that I'm bad, it could mean that I push a bit too hard, or I don't like using the stim individually because it feels like a waste when I know that I have the group therapy. And also I did option the grenades away, so I don't really have the grenade heal ability, so I tended to push down to this direction. But if you hover over it, you can find that you'll get a few different options that might fit your playstyle a little bit better. One other thing noting here is you can reset your skills based on how many of the reset points you've got. If you're doing it quite often, you run out, but realistically I never reset my skills throughout the whole first campaign that I played through, and when you do complete the game you'll have the ability to reset your skills without having to actually like pay for a cost. So that's where you can really play around with these character classes and find out what works for you. Okay, so we've had a look at support. Support is mainly based around healing and things that boost your squad, and pick one that's really useful for you. So support you want to always bring with you where you can, and usually most missions will involve you taking Gabe, so that kind of ticks that box. You probably don't need more than one support. I think that's totally overkill, so I tend to keep my team one support only. The next one we'll look at is the Vanguard, and these guys are pretty hardcore. It's pretty much your like go-to, well, it says assault here, but it's pretty much your go-to like mash 'em up guy. They're really good at covering distance, they're really good at attacking enemies and doing some serious damage, and they also heal themselves, which is really, really useful. And you can also boost that with some of the subclasses to heal others. So I always bring a Vanguard. Sometimes I bring 2 Vanguards, but that's based on my style of play. Now this one I've built into the assault subclass, so we'll take a look at the subclasses real quick. Again, you've got 4: Assault, Paladin, Warden and Shock Trooper. Now if you can reset the skills, you can kind of boost those over to 1/2 or 1 sector that you want to, but I did quite like this hunker down ability. That saved me more than a few times, and the regeneration has been really, really useful. So again, have a look at these and decide which route you want to go down, and don't worry about resetting your skills if you need to, because with the Vanguard they're always going to kick ass. You can always choose to kind of tweak the direction you're heading in. Mine's classed as an assault class, but I've pretty much split it between Shock Trooper and assault class just because his abilities are just so awesome. And as I said, I pretty much always take at least 1 Vanguard with me. Cole is another extremely good, useful character, and he's a Vanguard too, so we'll skip past that. Michaela has featured pretty heavily in my roster. Michaela's a sniper. Again, we got subclasses here. Sniper, as you can probably imagine, is a long-range sharpshooter. Now, I don't think I get as much use out of them as I like, but they are extremely accurate and they can do a lot of damage and drop enemies and get you out of a lot of problems. The Hunter subclass that I went for allows the character to pretty much like end up with loads and loads of action points. As you can see, along the marksman side and the assassin side, I really wasn't that interested in it. It went for Hunter and Stalker between that. So there's some really, really useful abilities that you can get with these guys. In honesty, I use more of the Hunter than I use of the Concussion. If I was to respec it, I'd probably pick a few more of these middle and between the marksman assassin and really develop my Hunter skills, because things like the ultimate shot is so useful on some of the later bosses. I really recommend you put in a lot of effort into the a lot of action points, not action points, a lot of your abilities into the Hunter, because that one is really going to save you some serious time on the bosses. And if you look at some of our boss strategies, you'll see that especially the later bosses, their health just disappears in like 1 or 2 rounds just through these Hunter abilities. So Sniper is almost essential. You definitely want them on a boss run for sure, but most missions I'll try and take a Sniper with me, although it can be interchangeable depending on the type of mission you got. Okay, so Scouts next. Now Scouts I didn't really use effectively enough until I unlocked Reyna, and just because she was one of the heroes, it kind of forced me into using a little bit more. The Scout really covers a massive amount of ground, and the reason I don't use them too much and I'm not too effective with Scouts is purely because I play a little bit like, as I've mentioned in other videos, I play a little bit like my XCOM style. So I like to hold myself up, cover myself and use Overwatch really effectively, and the Commando kind of breaks that down a little bit. What I do like to do to use a Scout, what I do like to do with a Scout is to hold my ground and use a Scout to kind of flank around, cover some distance and really mess with them. The Scouts have been useful in that way, but I haven't got as much use out of them as I'd like to. The Scout, I kind of put a lot down the Commando route, and the reason I did that is for the proximity mine, because it's such a ridiculously powerful ability. It's essentially planting the mines you might have seen in the basic video, planting a grenade mine, but you can throw it and it only uses 1 action point. So it's really, really useful to get that bad boy upgraded. And again, we've got 4 to choose from. I've kind of got a little bit of a mix between this, but it's not a class that I spent a lot of time playing with and using the abilities of. But I would personally recommend that the hidden status effect hasn't been very effective for me. If I was to respec this character, I'd be looking more on the recon and the commando, but again, that's based on my style of play. Like, I use mine to rush distances, set traps, and then kind of come back once the job's done. So things like the recon side and the commando are extremely effective. I would definitely be shoving these over here when I respec. Okay, so the other one that we want to look at is the heavy. Now the heavy has been one that I've not used enough, and you can probably see here that like I don't really have a heavy that's been massively skilled up. The reason for that is I use them so infrequently that I was kind of just chopping and changing. When a new one came in, I'd probably get rid of my other one because it wouldn't have leveled up. So I didn't take these on missions half as much as I probably could have done. The heavy is basically just like as it says here, it's just a mobile turret. It just sends absolute like ton of ammunition in the whatever direction you want, and you can use it to hold your ground really well. So it should kind of fit my playstyle in terms of advancement. But it's just one of those that I haven't really found too much of a use for because the others give me a little bit more flexibility. However, it might fit your style much more. So if we have a look at a skill tree, I dumped a lot into the defender because again I have quite a slow advancement moves, and I found the defender has been really useful for holding ground. You've obviously got the other four that you can use here. The explosive shot has been really effective. I haven't optioned it in this one. As I say, I've been kind of removing mine from my roster and upgrading them and trying different things. The explosive shot has been very useful. And I found this guy's been quite useful in terms of the suppressing fire because it really does like it really stops the advancement of enemy ranks, and certainly later in the game that's really useful for stopping enemies from kind of pushing into your position and causing you grief, and especially if you pair it with a sniper you can kind of pick them off at range. But again, it comes down to your personal style, so have a look at these, and also don't be afraid of either, I want to say like sell the character, just remove the character from your roster and then replace them with another one, because they do come thick and fast, and I managed to do the game on the second to hardest difficulty, just kind of chopping and changing with those. Okay, so we'll take a look at a loadout. Now realistically we pick our mission and we can add our units in, and side missions are, as far as I'm concerned, always much more difficult. So in terms of things that you can pick, I've been doing things like changing my, I can't obviously pick these now because they're travelling, which means I've used them for this one, but I've been changing things like supports, grenades and stuff across, so you are able to do that. If we click on the edit, you can change the cosmetics and the look. There's also more detail with that. So we can change these helmets, and if we have a look at the different abilities that you've got, it again comes down to what you think's best. Generally, if it's a legendary or it's epic or it's rare, then they're going to be better than the other ones, and you can just pick whatever makes more sense. So this one, I've kind of kept a lot of Coles just because the outfit's cool and it's the one that came with the unlockables, but they've also been really good. So every now and then it's worth checking with your squad that you can find ones that you think might be more useful. So his pads have been really useful all the way through, these flashball pads, 20 health, but this is definitely better to switch those over. So the passive skills that you've got, just check those, that you're not sacrificing those for something good. So he's got the ability to gain an extra 1 action, or I could give him a 20% critical hit resistance and an extra health. For me, that action point's still probably quite useful, so I'll keep that one, even though the overall buff isn't quite as good. So read those quite carefully. It's the same with weapons. You can pick, you will get tons of these, like as you go through the game, you'll get absolutely loads. So you can pick whichever ones you think are more useful. So this one's got a passive skill, hair trigger, so that's got a 10% chance, it's got a 15% chance. So we can switch those ones up, and it's always worth staying on top of that and just choosing the best ones that you've got. So he's got a pistol that's got 15% damage, 5% accuracy bonus. You want to make sure you stay on top of it, and that's realistically all that you have to do in terms of this, is just keep on top of your character abilities and just equip ones that you think are more useful. You can, with the grenades, also equip and change those, but just bear in mind that the some of them are based around healing, some of them are based around damage. So 150 damage, damn. You can also switch them up to choose if you want other classes to heal, whereas the support classes will find those more useful because they have buffs for it. It's totally up to you. I've personally put mine over into attack, so even my support classes have frag grenades, because do you know what, attack is the best form of defense as far as I'm concerned. Right, so that's a probably quite in-depth discussion of classes and loadouts. It is a lot about you having to play around and choosing things that fit your play style, and especially the mission style. So there's no point going into a bombing run mission or one where you have to cover lots of ground if you've got 4 snipers. So you need to try and have a think about that, and make sure that in your roster you've always got a decent range of of secondary characters that are in different classes, because especially towards the later game you might need to change up your playstyle more, and also you might lose some of these in the later game. The side missions are considerably harder than the single player missions.